Wo- Wonderful to have you all here with us. And I think it's just so special we can come together, thanks to Zoom and thanks to Michelle, and especially thanks to Claudia, because we're not dealing with the situation on our own. And the feeling of community is an essential one. And thank you for Claudia to helping us create it. And really, the Telford family all over the country with 25,000 South African olim, 10,000 Australian olim. And we're all going through this stressful and uncertain time together. And being together and having a gathering like this, thanks to Claudia, is something that gives us the strength to go through it. And Claudia, we just want to thank you. Your warm and genuine style. It's always a privilege to listen to you. And thank you for your generosity to share your
Always.
time and your wisdom with us this afternoon. So I hope you have your cups of tea ready, as I have. Right. Always good to have a cup of tea. I remember, Claudia, you gave a talk, I think it was last year, about dreams.
Yes.
I think we all wish that we could have some dreams that aren't
Yeah,
interrupted, right?
it's
That's
true.
like, it just seems like so long ago that we could talk about dreams, right?
It's true.
Um, but it really it's great, even though we are probably all somewhat sleep and dream deprived. It's
Mm.
great that we could come here together, relax, take a breather, have a cup of tea, l'chaim,
L'chaim.
and um, and really tap into Claudia's wisdom, knowledge, and tremendous abilities as a social worker, as a therapist. She's been such for over 35 years, and she's helped hundreds of people get past pain towards healing and joy. She's guided generations of people through marriage and life changes and divorce and parenting and grief. And Claudia, we really appreciate your no-nonsense style, your humor, your wisdom. And so did many also through your television program, right? Three Talk for many years. And now we're so fortunate. As you mentioned before, I was fortunate to welcome you when you arrived as an Ola. And now we also have you in Israel, in Ranana. And it's a privilege for us that you continue to practice and you continue to help people, both in person and online. And it's just great for Telfed that you're with us today, that you continue to support our community. So we thank you for that. And I just want to add that we also have our in-house social workers. So that's Ariella and Louise. If you feel that you would like to talk to one of our social workers, I'm going to put their phone numbers in the chat and their email addresses. You can send them a WhatsApp text. You can email them and set up a time to speak to them if you feel that's necessary, or you can consult with them. And also, if you know of anyone who's been directly affected by a missile impact, I'm going to put my details in the chat as well, so you can tell them to be in touch with me. That also includes people that are stuck and need to get back or need to leave. We have the contacts and we have ways to direct people in those situations. So with that, so those practical statements at the end, I want to go back to the real reason we're here, and that's really to spend some quality time together with Claudia, and to we appreciate it, and I'm sure we're going to come out of our tea party together, not like the Mad Hatter, but a lot calmer. So Claudia, toda rabah,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much, and thank you to Michelle.
Thanks as always. Thank you for that warm welcome, as you did on May 15th, 2023. And Michelle, thank you once again. I thank you pretty often because you've just brought me into the Telfed family with the pink open arms. And it really is very special to be involved with you, to be your friend, and to know that you are always thinking of the community and thinking of how to get people together and make sure that people don't feel isolated and make sure that people have got an opportunity, whatever they need. So, a big shout out, thank you to you. And I have walked the dog in case you're worried, because every day when I message Michelle and I walk the dog, I land up with a siren and having to take Milky into yet another shelter in Ranana. So I've walked the dog, so I'm not going to jinx it with a siren, hopefully, because the dog is walked. And I did get home in time for the siren this time. Okay.
Well
So,
done. Claudia, I would also just want to add that I think it'll be if those who can switch on their cameras, I think
yes,
it'll
please.
be best. It's always nicer to, I'm sure it's also easier for Claudia to see who
Yeah,
she's speaking to. So for those who can and are able to, I request that you switch on your cameras. It's a lot easier to react and
great.
we can see what tea you're drinking.
Yeah,
Thank
it does help. Thank you. I was going to mention that because otherwise I'm looking at a lot of names on a screen. And of course, this makes it much more personal, and I can look at people, and some of you I know and some of you I don't, but it just helps me engage. And it would be lovely to see anybody in pajamas, don't worry. Anybody in their gowns, don't worry. This is a time when we certainly, don't mind as long as you're here. That's the best part. So um, I'll go ahead and start. We had this tea last time. I remember, Michelle, how long ago was it when we had this Zoom?
I think it was last year. I think the last Iranian war must have been last year,
Last year.
June.
Okay. So there is a little bit of deja vu, obviously, and here we are again. However, um, we don't actually become complacent. We might be more efficient. We might be a lot wiser. We might be more experienced about how to handle things. However, being in a state of war, doesn't matter how many times you've been in it, it brings very particular variables, emotions, and thoughts each time. Not that they are unique, but we have to be respectful that the fact that we're in a situation is going to evoke a lot of feelings and thoughts. And most of the feelings and thoughts that are evoked during a wartime certainly are uncertainty. How long and where's this going to go? And will I be safe? A lot of worry about our loved ones around us, our loved ones in the army, our loved ones overseas. We worry about when are we going to see them again? And of course, we worry about our own safety. The biggest feeling that I think war generates is a sense of powerlessness, a sense of impotence. And war is not only the only situation that evokes a sense of powerlessness and impotence. Most of us South Africans know that feeling from South Africa, from crime, hijackings, and a time when we felt powerless as well. But this word powerless is particularly strong during a war. And that's why it's so important to immediately distinguish in our lives what do we have control over and what do we not have control over. And as soon as we make that distinction, we have a much better chance of management because we get into what I call the driver's seat. And when you're not in the driver's seat, things can really unravel quite badly. So in the beginning, and we are in day 6, which is quite different to days 1, 2, and 3. Day 6, we've already had announcements that the airport is open. The Home Command has said that they are opening gatherings to 50. The schools are not back yet. There's quite a lot of anger and conflict going on at the moment with the government about how much this war is costing, and people need to go back to work, which is very difficult if your children are at school. So we're in quite an up and down phase at the moment. In the beginning of a war, we know what makes us feel better. We want facts. And so we stay tuned, we watch the TV, we listen to the radio because we want to know facts. And we feel the more facts we have, the better we'll feel. And yes, there is a very important stage of getting information and protocols and resources and where to go and what to do and what not to do, which is a very important level of giving us a sense of stability in the beginning of a crisis or a war.
Is Ricard?
Sorry? Okay. However, our real sense of being in control is not going to come from how much news we listen to. Our real sense of control is about knowing the difference, as I said before, between what we're in control of and what we're not, which I'm going to get to. And I can't emphasize this enough because it's not only for wartime. It's a good practice for the rest of our lives as a way of Okay, I was muted, so I just unmuted myself. Okay. So yes, news is very important in the beginning, but after that frenzy of having to listen to all the broadcasts and be stuck with the TV all day, it's actually quite important to take a step back and to look at getting back into a different kind of lifestyle that will help your mental, your emotional, and your spiritual sense of well-being. And that's the most important thing, not only for wartime, but also during a crisis. In the beginning, of course, we are thrown, we are in shock, we're not sure how things will be, but human beings have generally done better when human beings start being in control of their personal lives as best as possible. We know that everybody's sleep deprived. Doron, you mentioned the fact that it's hard to dream if you don't have REM sleep. Last night was particularly busy. We had 2 sirens within 35 or 40 minutes, and most of us, I'm sure, find it difficult to just go back to sleep. And by the time we did, it was pretty much time to get up. So yes, sleep deprivation is factually definitely affects anxiety, it affects functioning, it affects clear thinking. And for people who are not at work, they can at least rest during the day. But for people working online, it's an added stress for sure. So let's get to the most important question, which is deciding what is our control and what is not under our control. So what are the most important things that are under our control? The first thing is our health. And in a situation like this, while we are restricted, there are still things that we must consider. Sleep, as we said, is one thing to try and give ourselves opportunities to rest, opportunities to sleep as much as possible at night and not only during the day, because otherwise that also can cause a bit of confusion. But rest is important. Our health is also important to make sure that we get some exercise. And for people who've chosen not to go out at all, and there are people who don't leave their homes until things are much lighter, at least to walk around, maybe to put on a YouTube video, to dance, to do yoga, to do some Pilates, even listening to music and dancing while you're cooking in the kitchen, but to actually get yourself moving, because exercise definitely helps mentally, emotionally, and of course physically. When you're in a state of anxiety, you tend to tense up, and sitting in the mamad or in a shelter certainly doesn't help. So of course exercise is very important, and most people have got TVs and probably YouTube or on your phone, and so that's also a very nice thing to do, is just to dance. Somebody said to me, I don't feel comfortable dancing or laughing at a time of war because it feels like I'm not taking the situation seriously. And I said, on the contrary, I think if you can allow yourself light moments to dance and to laugh, it means that you're managing a serious situation very well. Laughter and lightness is part of our mental well-being, and we should never see it as taking away from our sense of responsibility. So health, our nutrition. It's a time when we lose our appetite because we're stressed. We tend to maybe snack on things or eat junk food, but also to try and think about our nutrition, because the more we care for our bodies and the more we care for our minds and our mental and spiritual well-being, the better we'll manage stress and crises. They're people who have their own spiritual or religious rituals, men who put on their tefillin every day, and sometimes they don't. They decide to do it not only because they see it as religious, but they see it as a lovely, important ritual to start the morning, a sense of meditation. And so people turn to meditation or reading or saying psalms or reading prayer books, not necessarily because they want to change their religious practice, but because people draw a sense of comfort and people feel like that meditative state is calming and it gives them a sense of well-being. Probably for me, the two most, next to health, the two most important areas of being in control is our relationships and communication. And that brings me to the fact that isolation is not a good idea. We don't do well in isolation. We can go into a headspace, what I call going down a rabbit hole, and you can get lost there. You can get lost with bad thoughts. You can get lost with negative thoughts. Even people who scroll, we all know what happens when we scroll on Instagram or Facebook. We do go down a rabbit hole, and the next minute, an hour has passed, and we can't believe it. We have to be careful of isolation. And in any situation, isolation is factually proven that people definitely can decline more from isolation than from the actual war situation or crisis. And so we are lucky we have Zoom, we have WhatsApp, we still have Skype. Skype somehow is the ugly stepsister, nobody uses it anymore. But we have a lot of measures and medias available to us, just the same as we FaceTime overseas. It's very important to see a face. Half of you I can see, and it helps to see a face, to say hi to somebody, to know that somebody's there, and connection is crucial during a stressful time. The part of connection that can be difficult, that people brought up last time, was the amount of questions that we get loaded with from overseas and managing other people's stress. So a lot of our family overseas are often more stressed than we are. Maybe it's a strange thing, but a factual thing, that when you are in a situation and you're managing a situation, sometimes you feel more empowered than when you're far away and you are just worried about loved ones because you don't really know what it's like. When I sent a picture today from the park, from Uri Gordon Park, when I walked the dog, my friend said, "Oh, I didn't know that you went outside. It's so nice to see that you're in the park." Well, I can understand she had no idea to gauge what we're doing and what we're not allowed to do. And so we have to also be careful with what is the communication about. So when we speak to loved ones, I would advise that we talk about personal things, we hear about them, we can certainly talk about how we feel, but I think we have to be very careful not to go into that whole debate, a political debate. They can read the news as well as we can. They can keep up to date with a lot of things. And my suggestion is always to keep things personal, because it's the personal connection that makes us feel better, not rehashing the news or going over things that everybody can read really online themselves. Communication is so important. So whoever you are living with during a state of war or conflict, to talk to the person that is there, your person, about the way you feel, what's on your mind. And it's not for the other person to feel that they have to solve anything for you. It's not about solving. It's just about being heard. And so if you're feeling a little fragile or you're feeling a little uncertain or you just need some company, it's important for the person that's there with you in your space to know how you feel and for you to listen to how the other person feels themselves. Communication is and has always proven to be a key area of our well-being. And during a time like this, when we are stressed and worried, it's even more important to have a sense of communication. And we have a lot of options. As I said, we can WhatsApp, we can even send emails, but people in our immediate environment, there's nothing like oral communication. I still like to talk to somebody when I phone a business. I still like to hear a voice when I talk, when I'm trying to get something done. I'm not a person who likes to email companies and whatever. I still like human interaction, and I think it makes us feel better. If any of you have watched a program called The Blue Zone, I don't know if anybody knows The Blue Zone. It's on Netflix. Some of you are nodding. It's a story, it's a documentary about which countries in the world, which places in the world, not countries, where people live long, but live long in a healthy way. They're not hospitalized, they're not on medication, they live well into their 90s and hundreds. And this researcher wanted to understand what was it about that gave these people longevity. There wasn't one food in common because some of the places are in Greece, some are in Japan, some are in different islands. But the two things or three things that came up each and every time, the one was being sociable, was community. The sense of community always featured that people were not isolated and on their own. And the fact that they could, women particularly, meet in groups and cook or garden together, men also sitting around in a piazza, in a square, talking. In Israel, they call it parliament. And so the sense of community is always a huge part of mental health. And at a time like this, when you can't necessarily gather as you would want to at the coffee shop or go to your yoga class or meet for bridge or kaluki or play tennis or bowls or any of those things, you can still continue a sense of community and even have a Zoom call or a WhatsApp call or any of those things. So never underestimate the power of community. And the other thing that was in this program was also spirituality or religion, that everybody had some kind of connection to their universe, some kind of belief in something. And it doesn't matter what it is, but people who have a belief or a sense of spirituality, that they believe that there's a connection, they usually do better than people who don't. As I said, the food was less important, and of course, exercise. There was 100-year-old men on horseback, and there were women in their 90s gathering vegetables from their vegetable garden. And so even if you can do the steps in your building or do some exercise, as I said, dance, even to keep your physical not being stiff and get your circulation going. Reduce your news input. I really do think that we all listen to too much news. And as I said, in the beginning, we feel more secure with listening to news over and over. And after a while, I don't think it gives us what we need. I think it starts to overwhelm us, and I think it can actually take us into a mental space that's not healthy. You can tune in. Everybody's getting messages on their phone. Everybody's got either Ynet or Israel Live. There's the TV. There's plenty sources, but I think once or twice a day to tune in briefly to get a sense of what is going on is more than enough, but not to overload. Rather listen to music. Put music on in the background rather than the news. It's amazing how many people have the TV on in the background, the news on in the background. I think listening to music is far healthier. try and keep some routine. It's hard when you're not going out, but try and keep some routine, like getting up and getting dressed. I was saying to Michelle when we started, even through COVID, I got dressed every day for work. For me, I feel more structured, I feel more centered. When I'm in pajamas, I have a weekend feeling, or I have a feeling when you live in pajamas when you're not well. And so for me, I like to get dressed. I feel like it gives me a better sense of focus. And I think sometimes that helps as well. Basic self-care and hygiene, very important. I know we haven't been able to have a long bath because we don't want to be stuck in the bath for a siren, but certainly also keeping basic self-care and hygiene. For people who are prepared to go outside for short walks and get some fresh air, certainly when you know you're near your own shelter or a shelter nearby, I do think small outings are helpful. I think we can lose track of time staying at home, and I think it's very helpful when you go outside, enjoy a park. If you've got a dog, well, the dog needs to be walked. I'm very grateful to Milky because I have to walk her 4 times a day. I think she actually saves me in many times when I'm a bit lazy, and it's good to go and to get a walk. A hobby. If you haven't started a hobby, something that brings you joy, something creative. We know what happened during Corona, that people started baking and doing lots of things, jigsaw puzzles, learning a language on Duolingo. But again, a hobby is also something creative and light and positive. And during a war, we can go into a dark space, talking only about a lot of negativity. Watch something light, put on something that is humorous or light or enjoyable. As I said before, it doesn't mean that you diminishing the seriousness of what is going on in the country, or you're not being respectful to people who are in a much worse situation than you are. But it's very important to keep some lightness of being as well. Finding joy and happiness, even at a time like this, or especially at a time like this, is not a disregard for the situation. It's a sign of self-preservation. And those are the things, when we talk about what is in our control, these are the things that are up to us to control, no one else. How long the war will go on for, what Trump will do, what Iran will do, what Bibi will do, we don't know. But what we can do every day in terms of choosing who we speak with, what we share, how we take care of ourselves, how we eat, how we exercise, that we make sure we stay connected to our loved ones, that we give ourselves some joy and lightness of being. These are things that we absolutely have control of, not only during war. We have the control over this every single day. And for me, working with people over 35 years, I've seen that what people tend to do is they get distracted by the things they can't control and start fretting about things they can't control, even casual things like, oh, is it going to rain on Sunday and I've got people for lunch? And so you can start worrying about things that you can't control, and it really does sap your energy. And I say, rather keep your energy for the things that you can control. It doesn't matter how small or big. Even deciding what are you going to eat for dinner, making sure you're going to give yourself something nutritious, telling somebody what you need, asking for help if you don't feel good. All these things are completely up to us. And ironically, they're usually the most neglected areas of our life. We all know that we don't give people good information. We give people sometimes little hints that how do some people know that you're not in a good way? They don't hear from you for a few days. And sometimes people will signal that they're not in a good space by not calling, not messaging, not answering emails. And the problem about giving clues is that there's always a big risk that no one's going to pick it up correctly. Um, Husbands and wives don't give direct information. And one of the importances that one of the exercises that I do with couples, and I mention it in my book, is signposts. Be clear with your partner, be clear with your friends, be clear with your family. This is what I need. When I'm sick, I really do like to be left alone for a short while. When I'm ill, I like to be pampered. When I'm stressed, I like company. When I'm give me a little bit of time, I'll come back to you when I want to talk about something. When we give clear signposts to the people around us, we have a much better chance of getting what we need. And yet people avoid information, thinking they don't want to impose on people or burden people, or they hope that it's, as women often say in marriages, why must I ask for it? He should just know what I want. And I always say, for me, that risk is not worth it. It's much better to give information and get what you want rather than play this game of let me see if the person's going to interpret my clues. So as you can hear, the gist of my talk today is once again, we're in a difficult situation. In my 3 years, nearly 3 years here as an Ola, bar 3 months, my entire immigration has been during a war. And as somebody said, is that did you feel that that's been a bad thing? I said, no, not bad thing at all. It's part of Israeli life that I understand, and getting on with life. And for me, learning to practice what I preach. As a South African coming from a lot of stress, as most of us know, it was a different resilience that we needed then. But we do need resilience now, but not resilience in terms of denying what we feel and denying our self-preservation. For people who've got small children, there's a very huge added layer of managing children's stress and worry and having them at home and not at school. For older people, there's the sense of being isolated and alone and physically worrying about being alone at a time like this. So every age brings different dynamics. For me, the most important formula is remember what you are in control of, remember what you're not in control of, and please rather give your energy to the former and not the latter, so that you have a much better way and foundation to manage what is an ongoing stress, and a country that requires quite a lot of grit and quite a lot of resilience, but also offers a lot of resources, a lot of sense of community. And those are the things that will always keep a community going more than anything else. So I'd like to open it up if people have got some questions or concerns, if I can be of help. And if that's okay with you, Michelle.
Yes, of course. I'm just looking for anybody. Anybody got any questions? Put your hand up. I don't see any questions, Claudia.
Okay. No comments, no questions. That's fine. I hope it's been of some kind of help. I think, as I said, we're pretty experienced when it comes to being part of a war. However, one of the things I always say is that it doesn't mean we're immune. It doesn't mean we don't feel. The siren is still unnerving. I always find the siren unnerving. The sleeplessness remains an ongoing issue. The world view of Israel and the Jews is another layer of stress for sure. And it's very hard to explain to people overseas what it's like to sit in a mamad or a shelter, which is a very strange bubble, strange sense of reality. And and so my suggestion is try and keep those key cornerstones in your life going: self-preservation, good health, communication, connection, exercise and nutrition, because if you have a baseline, you can basically manage any crisis that comes your way.
It helps me. I'm 90 years old and I put on the TV and I dance. I get up and I dance.
Bella, well done. I think it's marvelous. I would never say 90. You look remarkable, Amen. And I think that dancing is actually quite, you need a lot of energy for dancing. It's actually got to be to dance. What music do you listen to, Bella?
I have my program on Israeli music.
Okay.
And concerts, all Israeli music, all day long, all day long. And
The
as
best.
I say, I get up and dance.
Absolutely marvelous and inspiring. Thank you for that. Keep dancing, Bella.
Thank you. Thank you. I was in a orange spiel, but we didn't have it.
Oh, that's a pity. Maybe you'll have a postponed one.
Maybe, I hope so.
Yeah. Okay, good for you. I see you participating in things, and that's I'm sure a big part of why you feel good and look good.
Thank you. Thank you.
If that's all the questions, firstly, I just want to say another huge thank you to Claudia. You're always our biggest champion. You're always there for the community, and I personally absolutely love listening to you and hearing all the amazing inspirational things that you share with us. What struck me is all the C's you said. The one was for all of us to stay calm, to find our calm. The other C was the communication, very important to share how we feel. The control, very important. We all think that we can control stuff, and yet we have to only look at the things that we can control. And lastly is community, and I feel that that's very important, especially for our Talpet community, the community that you're very much part of, and that you're very, very generously always sharing your words of wisdom with. So just want to say a very huge thank you once again. And to everybody who joined us, thank you for joining us, and be safe, everybody. And please go to better times for all of us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.